If Ukraine wants to take back the region that Russia has taken over, the war must enter a new phase. How will the Leopard 2 make a difference in this war? What will the outcome be? Make sure to stay tuned until the end to find out. In the 6 months since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the defenders have proven their proficiency with weapons provided by the West. The Ukrainian army has been unable to engage in maneuver warfare and take advantage of the cracks that their artillery is making in the Russian occupation force due to depleting supplies of armored vehicles. Western governments have so far declined to give Ukraine tanks and infantry fighting vehicles of their design. However, things are shifting, and a fresh Berlin plan would be welcomed on both sides of the Atlantic. The West provided Ukraine with tens of thousands of shoulder-mounted anti-tank and anti-aircraft weaponry during the initial weeks of the invasion. These assisted in stopping Russia's march on Kiev, which was later reversed. By May, Russia was using its superior numbers of artillery and a surplus of ammunition in an attrition campaign in the Donbass. There was a critical lack of ammunition in Ukraine. The majority of its supplies were depleted during the battle for Kiev, and the majority of Ukraine's defense industry was destroyed by a focused Russian missile campaign. Previously independent in the armaments industry, Ukraine today increasingly relies on assistance from the West. In response to the artillery crisis, the West had to reconsider its weapon shipments to Ukraine. There were simply insufficient supplies and manufacturing facilities for artillery shells built in the Soviet style, and there was no production line for the ammunition needed for Ukraine's outdated multiple rocket launchers. At the same time, Ukraine lacked the armaments necessary to launch NATO-approved shells and rockets, therefore it was unable to employ them. The solution was as straightforward as it was successful. The West gave Ukraine modern artillery, and Ukraine used it. Although Ukraine was still numerically inferior to Russia, it was now able to apply pressure to a significant portion of the occupied region. The ability of Russian artillery forces to fire their rounds against Ukrainian defense lines was considerably diminished by this, along with targeted attacks on command headquarters, ammunition, and fuel depots. Therefore, Western armaments assisted in averting Ukraine's defeat and increasing the cost of Russia's conflict. However, they're not enough to undo the progress Russia has made over the last 6 months. Now that Ukraine's long-range strike capability has been improved, Western nations must accept a third offset. They must outfit Ukraine's armed forces for maneuver warfare. In this subsequent stage of the war, heavy armor will be essential. Ukraine's government and independent experts have been pleading with Western governments to provide Kiev with armored vehicles so that its forces can move under fire and liberate occupied territory ever since it became clear that Ukraine's defenses would endure the initial onslaught and that Russia's failed blitzkrieg would turn into a protracted war. Hundreds of Soviet-made tanks, IFVs, and armored personnel carriers, equipment that Ukraine could employ right away, were swiftly delivered by countries in Central and Eastern Europe. However, experts caution that even these supplies were limited and that the West should plan for Ukraine's transition to cutting-edge NATO standard weapons in case it ran out of spare parts to fix and replace damaged equipment. But until this point, Western allies have held back on offering battle tanks and infantry fighting vehicles produced in the West. To avoid encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its boundaries, in the words of President Joe Biden, the Biden administration has been steadily putting together larger and more sophisticated aid packages. With the aid of equipment and training, other friends are also broadening the extent of their assistance to Ukraine. Representatives of these countries declare their resolve to advance in private. As Chancellor Olaf Scholz continues to emphasize, if the West truly does not want Putin to get away with conquering a nation or sections of it with a violent military campaign, then its leaders must remove this prohibition on armor. Therefore, the time has come to move on. To provide Ukraine the chance to reclaim Russian-occupied territory, Europe should launch this move under Germany's leadership. In March, Kiev sent a request to German industry for 100 Marder-type IFVs and 88 Leopard 1 tanks. Finally, as it did for self-propelled howitzers and anti-aircraft tanks, the Chancellery should provide its permission. However, many replacement parts will no longer be mass-produced, much like the old Soviet automobiles that Eastern Europeans transported to Ukraine. Therefore, the primary goal of Berlin's new initiative should be to gather European Leopard 2 users. A Ukrainian battle tank that meets NATO standards and has scalable production capacity would be made available to Ukraine as a result, along with a brigade of about 90 of these vehicles. 13 European armies – Austria, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and Turkey – used the Leopard 2 tank, which was first unveiled in 1979 and has subsequently undergone numerous upgrades. They have over 2,000 vehicles in total, spread out among various models and levels of readiness. The more nations that donate tanks, the easier it will be to split the cost of distributing them. The same is true of the reserve vehicles that are kept in storage. Just a small portion of them are usable, and the rest require restoration. The more nations that participate, the more they can do with fewer participants per nation, and the more affordable it will be to rehabilitate phased-out vehicles. More than half of these Leopards are of the 2A4 and 2A5 varieties. The most sensible option for a Ukrainian brigade would be one of these tanks due to their widespread availability, even though they do not represent the most recent tank variants, and some work would need to be put into retraining user interfaces for Ukrainian tank crews. The European Peace Facility should pay recipient nations to upgrade their donated Leopards to the most recent model in exchange. In order to assure prompt repair and replacement, the EU should also fund the establishment of supply and maintenance lines in its neighboring nations that border Ukraine. 3 members of the Bundestag's Defense Committee, one from each of the 3 ruling parties, recently demanded that Germany move past the structures and procedures of its defense industry that were in place during times of peace in order to rebuild the Bundeswehr and be able to support Kiev on a large scale. This move should be centered on a European-Ukrainian Leopard 2 collaboration. The international initiative to arm the Ukrainian resistance has so far been spearheaded by Washington, with Europe following. However, if Europeans are sincere about assuming equal accountability and transatlantic cooperation, they shouldn't wait for the Americans to take the next step this time. Instead, they should work closely together with their transatlantic partners. The US would applaud such forceful measures. The Leopard 2 is regarded by many as one of the best fighting tanks in the world for a multitude of reasons. Advanced armor. The advanced composite and modular armor on the Leopard 2 offers good defense against a variety of threats, notably kinetic energy penetrators and shaped charge warheads. Power. It has a 120mm smoothbore cannon that can fire a range of rounds, including high-explosive anti-tank rounds, armor-piercing, fin-stabilized tossing sabot rounds, and high-explosive squash-head rounds. Mobility. The Leopard 2 can move swiftly and easily over a variety of terrain because of its strong engine and sophisticated suspension. Modern technology. To update the tank, thermal imaging, laser rangefinders, and digital fire control systems were installed. Reliability. The tank has undergone numerous improvements, and the battle-tested design has led to a tank that is dependable and simple to maintain. Experience. Because the Leopard 2 has been in use for many years, the nations that employ it have a wealth of knowledge regarding how to maintain and operate the tank. Moreover, numerous nations like Germany, Poland, and Turkey deployed the Leopard 2 battle tank, a contemporary tank. With its improved armor, firepower, and mobility, it is regarded as one of the most sophisticated and capable tanks in the world. The Leopard 2 tanks might significantly alter the battlefield in the case of a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian forces would have a substantial advantage in terms of protection and firepower because of their sophisticated armor and arsenal. Additionally, the Leopard 2's mobility could enable Ukraine forces to react to Russian tactics on the battlefield with speed and efficiency. It's important to remember, though, that having modern weapons doesn't guarantee victory in a conflict. In addition to these, other elements like strategy, tactics, logistics, training, and morale also have a big impact on how the battle turns out. Do you think the Leopard move will work out? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed watching this video, then please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.